Namaste and welcome to The Intrepid Traveller. That's me, and today I'm going to be talking to you about solo travel in India, why you should be doing it. And the reason why I am talking to you about this is because this is the topic that I get most questions about. Probably because it's the most daunting. When we hear the word solo travel and we hear the word alone, people think it brings a sense of negativity, right? People think because you get on an aeroplane that you're going to stay without anybody being with you the whole time, and this is just not true. I am here today to explain to you the benefits of solo travel, and there are many. And so you get on an aeroplane, you're going to land in India, and people are worried about, that's it, you're never going to meet anyone again. That's not true. The beaten track in India is full of tourists. There are tourists everywhere, and the truth of the matter is that you can be as sociable or as isolated as you feel like. You know, you go to one of these backpacker restaurants or backpacker cafes, and it's full of your fellow backpackers who are also doing it alone, who are very keen to see you. But the thing is, when you've had enough, and this is the benefit of solo travel, when you've had enough of socialising, then you can just retreat and back into your world of being alone, and what more could you ask for? And this is a very important point, is when you travel in a big group, a big problem with travelling in a big group is that you will miss what you come to see. And that doesn't mean you're going to miss the Taj Mahal, because like it's huge, right? You're just there and it's a big massive building. Everybody can see that. But people all too often, they miss the culture. And that's what we come to see, because people are so engaged in each other that they just miss everything else. And that's a real shame, right? And solo travel can, for me, is a great thing, and I would like to encourage you and I implore you, for those people who are afraid to go solo traveling, don't be afraid. And I know it can seem daunting, right, to go anywhere alone, let alone a country as notoriously intense as India, and it has got a big reputation for being intense. And its reputation, I'm not going to lie to you, precedes itself. But it's that intensity that will enrich your experience and give you something really special, that will give you memories that will last a lifetime. Guys, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid, please, right? Solo travel is nowhere near, like anything in life, nothing in life is ever as bad as you think it's going to be, and solo travel is no different. And for me, a huge benefit of solo travel, right, is it's a chance for you to take a step back from your normal life, right, and take a look at it. And this is what I do. I mean, it's a bit philosophical, but it's something that's not going to happen to you in your regular time, no? Right? Where you can let's take a step back, look at your life, and you can interpret your past, you can interpret your present, you can interpret your future, and maybe, just maybe, you can think of something that you can do to make your life better when you get home. And this is not something that happens to you in your day-to-day life, right? Because we're all busy, working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, however many hours it is that you do in your business that's funded you to come here. This is a chance for you to be able to reflect. And that's golden in itself, isn't it? So don't let that word of being alone bring that sense of negativity that it comes with solo travel, because you're only as alone as you want to be. Yeah, and India is a great place for you to spend a little time with self-reflection and to explore this wonderful country, and there's no harm in doing it by yourself. Okay, so while it is true that you are unlikely to feel overly isolated unless you go really off the beaten track, something that is real is the cost difference. The cost difference between traveling solo, traveling in a group, traveling as a couple is quite sizable. So I am going to cover that now. Before you start thinking about saving money, you need to think about how much you're going to budget for your trip as a whole, and that's very, very important. And what do I mean by that? Well, I've seen a lot of posts out there and that say you can get by in India on $10 a day. You can't. For me personally, I think that is a very irresponsible thing to say to people, and you're only saying that really because it's what people want to hear, that you can get by on this tiny amount of money. And my stuff would sell if I said the same, but I don't want that. I want to be authentic, and I want to be honest with you, and I want you to be able to trust me. And to say that you can get by on $10 a day is irresponsible and is definitely not true. While India is very good value for money, in fact very few countries in the world offer such good value for money, and that's true. But India is progressing into the future, and the cost of everything is continuously going up. Let me put it into perspective for you. The cost to get into the Taj Mahal, I checked a few days ago, and is currently $17 on that day's exchange rate. $17. So if your daily budget is $10 a day, how is that going to work? It's not going to work, right? So you have to start with a decent budget to begin with, and because if you don't have one, then that's going to greatly affect your experience, and you're only there once, and quite often that you're going to have to come home early, because you should be, and I strongly recommend you record what it is that you spend daily. And if you don't have enough money in that initial budget, then you're always going to be chasing your tail, and that's going to greatly affect your experience. So I would suggest, before we look at how to save money, is to make sure that you've got enough in your budget for what it is that you want to do. And I know that's not what people want to hear, but that is the reality. And because it costs more to travel solo overall, and I'm going to explain why, and we're going to look at that in detail now. Now I'm going to talk about hotels and how you can save money. Now this realistically is a bit of a problem, because a solo traveller has a major disadvantage. There's not much in the cost of a double room and a single room. And if you're in a non-touristy area, this is going to be difficult, because a lot of the time people only offer double rooms. So if you're coming off in Gujarat, I found this to be a particular problem, where it doesn't matter if you're two people or one person, you're still going to have to pay for two. I found very few single rooms. They don't get a lot of single travellers, I think. So this is certainly something for you to take into consideration. But if you're on the tourist track, then in a place like Rajasthan, then you're going to find single rooms available. And again, coming back to what I was saying earlier on, that the cost of things are increasing in India. I've seen hostels on the rise now, and these hostels, not overly clean, but they're your typical budget hostels. In big cities, you get them like Delhi or Bangalore, where you get several beds in one room. Now, don't expect cozy, but they're cheaper, and it's a good way around it, because the big cities in India can be very, very expensive. So this is certainly an option that is new to you. Of course, if you can find somebody that you can build up the trust with to share the cost, to split the cost, then of course that's great. And everything's negotiable. I'm going to cover this quickly. Everything's negotiable. It doesn't matter if it's written in a plaque above the door that this is the cost of the room. You can wangle that. You really can, you know, and it depends on a lot of things. It depends how many of there are you. We've just established as one. How long will you be staying? What services will you be using? There are a number of things that you can have on your side that you can bargain with. And something that you can do extra is to turn up with no luggage. And I recommend this tip quite a few times in a lot of my other posts because it really is effective. You walk into a place and you've got your luggage, that says you're looking for a room. But if you turn up without luggage, you're just browsing. So that means you probably already got a room. So you're more likely to be able to get a good deal. You're coming in on a winning foot because nobody wants to see that perfectly good money walk out the door. And you can use that to your advantage. You know, I don't know if there's a bit of manipulation or maybe I shouldn't say that. But to be honest, all's fair in love and war because you don't want to overspend. So you turn up without your bag and then you can negotiate. You're going to stay for 4 days. And say you go to Cheltenham, you're going to go for 4 days and you're going to take a camel safari with that place. Watch the rate of your room come down. You've got to strategize how it is that you're going to do things. And this is something that's worked for me over and over again. So obviously, if you're a couple, one person can wait with the bags. Anytime I've ever traveled with a woman, I tend to wait with the bags because, let's face it, we sleep wherever the woman decides is nice, you know. So I tend to wait for the bags, and they go off and they have a look at a number of hotels. But this post is about single backpackers, and obviously, if you're a single backpacker, you've got no one to wait with the bags. So a little cheeky way around this is you can find a tourist cafe or bar or something like that that you can find in like Paharganj. I'll use it as an example. You're probably going to arrive from New Delhi train station because Paharganj is where all the backpacker hostels and hotels are sort of huddled around, and it's just over the road, so it's logical for you to turn up there. So you can just walk out there, go to one of those cafes, put your bag down, order a cup of coffee of course, put your bag down and just say you're going to come back in a few minutes, and as long as your big bag is there and not your little bag, then because the little bag's got all the valuables in it, you don't leave that anywhere, then that's fine. And then that gives you a chance to go and have a look around, because you're going to get approached by a lot of touts as well. It's just say, I'm using Paharganj, but it's the same in any major backpacker area where you'll find strangers in the shade come out and say, you want a room. That is lovely, and they can take you to a room, but the thing is they're working on commission, so your initial rate is going to be higher anyway, and then you're going to put yourself onto a losing foot. Those people are running off commission, and also taxi drivers do the same. So if you're going to approach someone like Paharganj, again, I'm using it as an example, it could be anywhere with good backpacker traffic, then I would come in at New Delhi train station, just ask to get off there and go for a walk. Otherwise the rickshaw drivers, they might be in cahoots with hotels as well, and this can really get on your nerves, you know, when people are following you in there, and sometimes they just follow you into the hotel to claim that they are responsible for you walking through the door. So you've got to stop that from happening, because you will pay for that even if they didn't put you in there. So it's a bit of a hard hustle in these big backpacker areas, but you've got to remember that the people doing this, they're not overly financially well off, and so what would you do? You'd be doing the same thing, right? But you need to protect yourself. So there are ways around it. That is how that you can save money, and I really felt that was worth mentioning. It's not just the cost of hotels that can cause problems for solo backpackers, it can be the cost of transport. Now, the cost of a train is the cost of a train. It's the same for everyone. If it's 1, 2, 10 passengers, you don't get a discount. That's not an issue. Cost of a bus is the same. Although, I will give a little tip. I'm not going to go into detail for tips for solo female backpackers, because that deserves a separate post. But I will say, if you are going to get a train and you are a single female, then I would recommend getting an upper bunk on whatever class that is you're sleeping on. You take your day pack up there, It's also very useful if you're a single male traveller, but more so if you're a single female traveller. You will be able to go onto the top bunk, take your day pack, and this will give you considerably more sense of safety if you're on the top. And this is the bunks that the Indians don't want anyway, because the heat rises, and so they are hotter. They're closer to the fans if you're travelling second class sleeper, but they are the bunks that no one really wants. But that's very useful for you, although when you're sitting you will have the aisle seat, and that means if you're travelling second class sleeper you're going to be bombarded with vendors of every description that you could possibly imagine. But you take the good with the bad. You can disappear to your top bunk anytime you want, and when you lay down just put your day pack against the wall, and it does make a hell of a lot of difference to your safety. So that's just a little something I'm going to throw in there. I haven't made the blog for single female backpackers, but it will be coming to you. So transport is that you only really have issues when you're doing shorter journeys, when you've got to hire a taxi or a rickshaw. Now the cost of a rickshaw is the cost of a rickshaw. No, it's whatever you can bargain at, really, that price, and it depends how good you are at bargaining. So a way around that is to download the Uber or Ola apps onto your smartphone, and if you're going to do that, in my experience, it's better to download the Uber app before you arrive, but you will need an Indian SIM card to be able to utilize that, and that will give you a decent price without the headache of always having to bargain, or maybe they're running on a commission. There's a lot of things that can wind up giving you a bit of a headache, and this stops it. If you're going to visit one of India's premier national parks, then it can seem like it costs a fortune, and it does. If you're traveling for months at a time, you're going to feel it, but you've got to think it's all in relation. You know, if you're going to visit some of the premier national parks in Africa, then the daily cost can be enormous. I mean, without taking away the cost of visiting the gorillas in, say, Rwanda or Uganda, we'll just say a national park that's not specialist, like the Ngorongoro crater. That's $200 a day last time I checked for you to get in per day. So that is a pretty meagre cost compared to what you will get charged in India. But the thing is that you're charged for by the seat, and this is a bit of an issue, particularly if you go in the off season, because the off season around sort of April, May time, that's the best time to see wildlife, which is the reason why you come. But if you travel there in the winter time, then the scenery is lovely, but there's water sources everywhere, and so the animals are more difficult to find. But there are ways around this, but technically you're going to have to wait until the jeeps fill up. And it's the big national parks like Ranthambore or whatever. These ones you can, they will fill up all the time. But then you've got a downside again, where it's luck of the draw who you're going to be sharing your jeep with, and you're going to spend what seems like to you is a lot of money, and it is a lot of money if you're going to be traveling for 6 months. Every time you spend and you want to go and see the tigers or something like that, you actually want to see the animals, but you can't guarantee who's going to be sharing the jeep with you in the off season. So and this can make a huge difference. I've been on several safaris, and I'm not joking, I've been on several safaris where I've been on board with a number of passengers that just want a selfie with the tiger, and they are more than happy to play loud music on their mobile phones, no joke. Because particularly domestic tourists, because they're only there for the big animals. Not all obviously, but many of them have just come to see the tiger or the rhino or one of the big species of megafauna, and if you're not that, you know, and so people play loud music, and it's infuriating to me. So ideally you would want to wait around until you can meet people to split the costs with, who actually want to see the wildlife. And this isn't easy. This could take time, you know, and this is the best way around that, is to budget enough time to be able to meet people who want to share the Jeep with you. If you're not that fast, then you could just do luck of the draw style safari. Whenever you fill up, you just pay your commission and somebody would sort it out for you. And sometimes you do have to pay the commission as well. I try and get around it. Like in Ranthambore, I really got around it. And check out my post. Again, I will leave the link in the description for that. I managed to really save a lot of money visiting there. But other national parks like Sassengeir, you're going to have to use a middleman. You're going to have to use commission-based tourism. They're going to you're going to have to pay a middleman to sort out your seat, and you're going to have to pay them for that. I didn't find a way around it in Sassengeir. But in the on season, if you're going in the peak season, then you can wait for people, and you wouldn't have to wait very long, because the guest houses, they fill up quite fast. So a tip that I would give you, and I would stand by it, is be generous with the amount of time that you are going to donate to going to see the wildlife, if that's on your agenda. Some of them, like Collado Ghana, it's open year round, unlike most of them, and you can just go into the national park and you can walk by yourself, and that's not really a big problem. But the big premier parks, where you're going to have to involve a jeep and a driver and a spotter, which is a separate service for some reason, then you are going to have to pay, and that makes it worth your while to make that happen. And as well, you can't just turn up to somewhere like Ranthambore, say, oh, I want to see a tiger, I'm going to do one safari, and then you're going to see tiger. It's not a zoo. You're going to have to do a number of them. So you're going to have to, my advice is to wait around until you find people who share your interests. And you could do that in your guest house. You could do that in a cafe. Again, these are useful places, not just to socialize with people, but you can build business bonds, because it is a business deal that you're doing. You know, you're saying you're going to split the cost with me. Let's go out and let's go and find the animals and get value for your money. So I will say that for the solo traveler, budget enough time to get what it is that you want, because you probably won't be there again, and it wouldn't be worth you coming. The last thing I'm going to talk to you about is restricted area permits. Now, depending on where you are in India, depicts how difficult it's going to be to get that permit. Most of the country, don't get me wrong, most of the country is included in your initial visa, but there are several places where you're going to have to apply for an additional permit. Now, if you fly to the Andaman Islands, which is a restricted area, it doesn't matter how many of you there are, the government will still give you your pass, and it's 1 month, and then you're free to move around the archipelago and go and see everything. No problem. But if you want to go to somewhere where they've got a minimum of 2 people allowed to apply, but there's only you, that can be a problem. And it depends how popular that restricted area is. If you go to Shimla and your goal is to go to the Spiti Valley, and it's increasing popularity, and for a good reason, it's incredibly beautiful out there. So more and more people want to head into the Spiti Valley. It will take 2 minutes to meet one person or 2 people. You can meet a couple and you can just apply together, and it's the problem solved. And it's no issue for you to go into Kaza from Shimla, which you're going to need a restricted area permit. It's easy to solve. But then if, say, you wanted to go to the Milam Glacier, despite it being in another state, you have to apply for your permits in New Delhi, I believe. I think that's still the case. And to this day, I've never met, ever, another traveller who's heading out to the Milam Glacier. So you're going to be waiting around a long time. So I recommend, to make sure that you can see if you need a permit or not, you can check online. You can use the Lonely Planet and see if you can gauge how much traffic is heading out that way, to see if it's plausible for you, because sometimes it's not plausible. You know, how long can you wait? Now, to summarise my video, as some of you know, I'm trying to make things a little bit more snappy. I'm trying to pause less at the moment. I'm editing more, and I hope I'm delivering information fast enough and you're finding everything steadily more engaging, which is what I'm hoping to do. I'm trying to learn video editing skills. This is not my forte, but I'm getting there. Give me a few more months and I'll make things as engaging as the information is unique. And this is my angle, really, is that I have a look around online. I don't see a lot of information like this, and it comes from years of experience. And I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you've learned something. And if you have any more questions and you're not sure about anything to do with Indian travel, then you can contact me and I will get back to you immediately. So you can look forward to some more installments like this that will hopefully progressively get better. And if you have any tips about video editing, or you have any suggestions of what you would like me to talk about, just comment away. Everything, I want to deliver the service that you want, so help me to do that. Yeah, I want this to be interactive. I want it to be engaging as far as possible. So back to solo travel very quickly. Do it. In a nutshell, it's not as bad as you think it's going to be. Just take the plunge and you will see that it is a good move, and you can get a lot out of it just by going and taking the plunge yourself. So when it comes to solo travel, I recommend wholeheartedly that you give it a whirl, and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. It's not as you picture it in your head. You're not going to spend 6 months alone. It's not going to happen, you know. And so get out there and enjoy yourself and make your dreams a reality. And I hope that you've gained what you were looking for, a little bit of reassurance and a little bit of insight from this particular video.